Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Endless TBR. My name is Christian, and this is my YouTube channel where I love to talk about all things book related in my life. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to click on this video, where I'm going to share my top 10 favorite authors all time so far. And if you watch my videos, you'll know a couple months ago I posted a video that was my top 10 favorite books of all time so far. I'm going to give you a bit of a warning. There's going to be a lot of overlap between that book and or between that video in this video. I was debating whether or not to make this video because I know there's going to be a lot of overlap. I didn't want it to be boring and predictable, but at the same time, the reason I made this YouTube channel is so that I could document my reading journey and my tastes throughout my adulthood. And so I decided, let's go for it. Let's just make the video. And in a year or two, whenever I make an updated 10 favorite authors of all time, I can kind of see how my tastes have developed and changed over the years. So real quick, one requirement to have an author end up on this video is I need to have read at least three of their books. I felt like one or two books just wasn't enough for me to get like a full taste for the author. So I made the requirement three books. I will admit a lot of the authors on this list, I have barely dented their entire bibliography. I'm still very much in the infancy stages of my reading journey. And so a lot of these authors, there's a lot of books by them that I have not read, which makes me excited because I get to read more books by them. But I just want to let you know I have to have read at least three of their books for them to be on this list. Oh, this is also in no particular order, except for probably number one. So let's get into it. So this author is going to come with a bit of an asterisk, and that is Brandon Sanderson. And the asterisk is that I have only read three of his books, and all three of his books are in the Mistborn Era 1 trilogy. I have here Mistborn The Final Empire and Mistborn The Hero of Ages. I went back and forth a little bit on whether or not I should include Brandon Sanderson on this list. He does meet my requirement of three books, but it felt a little cheap that they were all in the same the same series. But I really, really like his writing style a lot. He just got me so connected to all of the characters in this trilogy, and all three of the books in this trilogy are some of my favorites of all time. Every time I was scanning my bookshelf, kind of looking around to see who I could include in this video, my eyes stopped at the Mistborn trilogy every single time. So I said, you know what? I think that I loved his writing style enough for it to make sense that it would be included in this video. So I am including Brandon Sanderson with the asterisk of I've only read Mistborn Era 1. Hopefully in 2026, I'm going to read a lot more of his books so I can feel a little more confident cementing him on this list. But that is Brandon Sanderson. Next up, we have someone that I absolutely love, and that is Agatha Christie. And I have in my hands here, I picked two of my favorite books by each of these authors, just so you know. So in my hand here, I have The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, and I have The Mysterious Affair at Styles. Admittedly, I have only read Hercule Poirot. I'll never be able to say that name right, but those books by Agatha Christie, but I absolutely love them, and they're some of my favorites. I'm not even a big like mystery whodunit person, but every time I read one of Agatha Christie's books, it just makes me so happy. It has like there's such fun adventures, and I'm always in awe of the amount of plotting that she does. Like the ending of these books always catch me by surprise. I spend so much time thinking in my head, all right, who could have done it this time? And I'm always wrong. And I'm always in awe so much of how detailed and well thought out each of these books that I've read by her so far have been. And I admit I'm not even close to finishing all of her books in this series. I think there's like 45 of them. I have a long way to go, but I'm really enjoying what I've read so far. And Agatha Christie immediately jumped out at me when I was thinking about authors that I wanted to include in this video. So that is her right there. Next up, we have a author that I really love. He's represented two different phases of my life, and that is Neal Shusterman. And here in my hands, I have Unwind and I have Scythe. Unwind was one of my favorite series when I was in like high school. I think high school is when the first one came out for me. High school and then kind of into my teens a little bit. One of my favorite series at the time. And then Scythe is a book that I read last year in 2024, and I read all four of the Scythe books, The Toll and Thunderhead and the Gleaning short story collection. I read them all last year and really enjoyed them a lot. And so I like Neal Shusterman because you got like my childhood, and then you have my current day reading. And he has just been so consistent. throughout everything that I've read by him. Great fun adventures. You know, they are YA books, so if you're not super into YA, you might not like him too much, but I've really enjoyed everything I've read by Neil Shusterman, and he is another person that I really need to read more by him because he has such a deep bibliography. He has written so many books, and I've barely scratched the surface, but I have read both of these series and enjoyed them so much. So I had to include him on this list. Next up, we have an author I've talked about a lot on this channel, and she is one of my favorite childhood authors from my childhood, and that is Emily Rada. And I have here in my hands Deltora Quest and Deltora Quest 2. I have also read Rowan of Rin by her. Those I read when I was a lot younger in like elementary school, but I remember those books being some of my favorite fantasy books. I did a like a dramatic reenactment of Rowan of Rin as a project in like elementary school. I don't. It was probably really cringy back in the day, but I really want to get the bind up of the Rowan of Rin books and read them again because I remember liking them a lot. But just based off of Deltora Quest alone, Deltora Quest 1 being 8 books, and then Deltora Quest 2 being 3 books. And then I also did read Deltora Quest 3 when I was younger. I don't remember them as well, but I mean to get the 21st anniversary edition of that bind up soon and reread those for sure. But Emily Rada was someone that really got me into the fantasy genre and also kind of exposed me to the horror genre a little bit when I was a kid. As much as these books are heavily fantasy influenced, there's some scary stuff in here. And even rereading these books as an adult, there was a couple times where I was like, ooh, that's dark. That's kind of disgusting for like a kid's novel. So I think she is the author that really exposed me to the scary stuff early on in my life, which has bled into my adult reading a lot. And so I had to include her on this list. So Emily Rada, if you have not read Deltora Quest, still holds up really well, even for adults. So next up, we have an author that was featured on my top 10 favorite books of all time. I actually accidentally didn't grab that book and grabbed another book. It is The Hunger Games. So Suzanne Collins, Catching Fire is one of my 10 favorite books of all time. I grabbed The Hunger Games. And then I also have Gregor the Overlander right here. So this is another, like Neil Shusterman, kind of reflects two different eras of my life. So we have The Hunger Games, which came out when I was in high school, but also you have the more recent additions to the franchise with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Sunrise on the Reaping. But then you have one of my favorite book series when I was a little kid, and that is Gregor the Overlander. All 5 of those books are on my shelf right now, and I absolutely adored this book series. I remember when I finished the 5th book in the series and it was over, it was the first time I remember as a kid being genuinely depressed that a book series was over. I was so sad that I wasn't going to be able to spend any more time in the Underland and going on adventures with these characters. And so I had to include Suzanne Collins on this list for the Hunger Game franchise, but then of course for Gregor the Overlander, which had a huge impact on my reading as a child. So moving right along, I'm trying to keep these pretty short and sweet. Next up is a name, of course, everybody's going to know, J.R.R. Tolkien. I have with me here The Two Towers and Return of the King. Admittedly, I have only read his Middle Earth stuff. I have read, of course, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, as well as The Hobbit, and very recently I read The Silmarillion. And not much I can say about J.R.R. Tolkien that hasn't been said already, but he is the absolute goat of fantasy. These books, this trilogy, and The Hobbit have laid the groundwork for so much to come. Like everything in fantasy, it takes inspiration from The Lord of the Rings, in my opinion. They're also my favorite movies of all time. Return of the King is my favorite movie. Just everything about this franchise touches my heart so much, and I love them absolutely. And, like I said, J.R.R. Tolkien is the goat of fantasy writing, and Lord of the Rings is amazing. So, yep, I don't know what else to say about it, to be honest. All right, next up, we have an author that I was exposed to last year, 2024, for the first time. I read his first book, and then I immediately bought his other 3 books and finished all of them within like a month or two. And that is Felix Blackwell. And I have with me here The Cold People and Other Fairy Tales from Nowhere. And we have Stolen Tongues. Stolen Tongues being my least favorite of his books, but I feel like the most recognizable, which is why I included this. If I remember correctly, I believe this actually started as a short story that he put on Reddit, and then people loved it so much he turned it into a book. But so I brought this one because it's his most recognizable, but he also has 2 books it's In the Devil's Daydreams. I probably said that wrong. And then Church Beneath the Roots. That one I got right for sure. But I love Felix Blackwell's writing style so much. Um, you know, I don't think I've ever gotten like spine shivers and chills as much as when I read these books. And even though I said Stolen Tongues is my least favorite of his, I still really enjoy it. The prologue in Stolen Tongues, there's this parrot and it is so creepy. Like this is the first book I read by him, and from the prologue in, I was like, I love this guy's writing style. I want to read more of his stuff. And I get sad because on his website, I can't. I hope it's not serious. It might be, but he says he's done writing, and I sure hope it's maybe a joke. Like he kind of in his like forwards and stuff, he can be a little like jokey, I think. So I'm hoping that maybe it's not true. If it is what it is. I mean, we have four amazing books from him, but I hope Felix Blackwell still keeps publishing stuff because I absolutely adore his books. Next up, can't not include this guy in a book about my reading life, and that is, of course, Frank Herbert. Here with me, I have Dune and I have God Emperor of Dune, my favorite of the books I've read by him so far. Dune is the book that got me back into reading as an adult. Through my teens and 20s, I very much took a nosedive when it came to reading, didn't read very much, and that is until in 2024 I read Dune and then I immediately reread Dune, and I'm planning to reread Dune again because this is one of my favorite books of all time. I was just in awe after I finished this, and I included God Emperor of Dune as well because this book is so entertaining. I absolutely loved it. One of my more recent reads. But yeah, what can I say? Frank Herbert, he has a difficult writing style, but it's so chock full of philosophy and life lessons and morals that are super important. And he writes very, very interesting characters and incredible landscapes. And like I said, his writing is not the easiest to digest, but it's absolutely worth it. And it is so chock full of important messages. And I love Frank Herbert, so he had to be on this list. Thank you for making Dune, sir. Next up, we have who I would consider to have been my favorite author throughout most of my life. Definitely, if you had asked me through high school and my 20s, like, who's your favorite author of time, I would have said Christopher Paolini. He's absolutely my top three. Right here, I have, of course, Aragon, the first book that he wrote. And I also have this one, Fractal Noise, which I think is his most slept on book. This is part of the Fractalverse series that he is currently writing, his sci-fi series. And his story is just so impressive. From having started writing Aragon when he was 15 years old, publishing it, I think, when he was 19. I consider Aragon to be really my first like big boy books that I read. That sounded so lame when I said it out loud, but like I remember when I first picked this book up, it was so much bigger than any other book I had ever read. And then same when like Eldest and Brissinger came out, they were so big. And this was like kind of like early high school for me, I want to say. And gosh, I just love them so much. I like in the same way that I said I got emotional after reading Gregor the Overlander when I was a kid. I remember being like 20 years old, finishing Inheritance, and being just absolutely gut punched that the series was over and that I wasn't going to explore those characters anymore. Thank you so much, Christopher, for making Murtagh. I have it back here, and I know he's still continuing to work on more books in that franchise. Made me so happy when I found that out because I was just devastated when that series was over. One of my favorite series of all time with the Inheritance cycle. And then Fractal Noise. This was a book I read last year. I finished this in one setting. I really, really liked it. It is the book zero to another book that he wrote back in 2020, which is called To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, a book that I really want to reread soon because I read it in a point when I wasn't super into reading and I remember enjoying it, but not really fully taking it all in. And so To Sleep in a Sea of Stars is a book that I really want to read again to appreciate it. But when I read Fractal Noise, it just like, I don't know, it just put Paolini back on the map for me. I was like, I really enjoyed this book a lot, even though it doesn't have the best reviews, which bums me out. But I love him so much. And then, of course, my favorite author of all time, and probably not a surprise to anybody who watches my videos, we got Stephen King. I have with me here The Stand, of course, and then my favorite book of all time, which is 11/22/63. Just like J.R.R. Tolkien, you guys know who Stephen King is. There's not really anything I can add to the conversation about him, but I will say that he just makes the best characters of all time. I'm not even that deep into Stephen King's bibliography. I've read like 12 to 15 of his books, but most of them are easy 5-star reads for me. I'm thinking Salem's Lot, I'm thinking Carrie, The Shining, Night Shift. Most recently, I read Night Shift just last month, and it was one of my favorite books I've ever read. And so Stephen King is the absolute master of horror, of course, and he has written my favorite book of all time, 11/22/63. If you haven't read this book, go read this book because it's incredible. And so that is my 10 favorite authors of all time. Sorry, my brain started getting like just crazy during this video. I don't even know if what I've been saying makes any sense, but hopefully it did. If you have read any of these authors, and if there's some of your favorites, let me know down below, or let me know some of your other favorite authors. Like I said, I am still in the infancy stages of reading. There's so many other authors that I haven't read that probably deserve to be on a top 10 favorite authors of all time list, and I really want to be exposed to as many of them as possible. So let me know some of your favorites. As always, thank you so much for watching. My name is Christian. This is the Endless TBR, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.